We're coming down the home stretch. We've got 4 ice-cold locks here on the Big Mountain for Week 11. Let's find out who they are.
College football is back, and we're back on the Big Mountain, where we bring you a detailed focus on the Big Ten and the Mountain West.
Steve, Week 11, we are coming down the home stretch here. We are getting ready for conference playoff time, conference championship time, and it's exciting times, both in the Big Ten and the Mountain West. I mean, some huge games this week and really for the next 3 weeks. And if you're new to the channel, I'm JY. This is my good friend Steve. We like to pick all the Big Ten games, all the Mountain West games, and I'll sprinkle in a couple other picks. I've got 2 other conference or non-Mountain West conference picks again this week. So we're going to start with the Big Ten, Steve. Have at it.
Let's go. All right, so rolling right into it. First game, one that's near and dear to my heart. I will be there. Michigan at Penn State. Obviously, there's a lot of drama going on outside of the field of play this week. Possible courtroom battles and backroom deals, who knows, whatever. But I'm gonna stick to the game. What I think is gonna happen. Michigan at Penn State. We came in this year. My prediction was Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State, that they would each knock each other off.
Right.
That they would finish 11-1. And obviously, Penn State, they had a great chance at Ohio State to make some noise to gain that, kind of take their place as an equal to those teams, and they fell short, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But that game was at Ohio State. Penn State actually has a fairly good record against Michigan at home, and I actually really think that Penn State is, they're basically the number 1 rushing defense in the country. I think they're actually maybe a little better suited this year to stop the run. The last time they played Michigan, they got ran over. So they're suited better this year to stop Michigan's running game and make J.J. McCarthy beat them. Okay. Now, the way J.J.'s been playing this year, and I know you've been a big fan of his, I think Michigan says, okay, we'll take that. However, Michigan has not been tested this year. Yeah. We've talked about that. I do give them all the credit in the world. We've both had them up as our number 1 team for most of the season, but they have not been tested this year. They have not had a pass rush. They've been ahead of the chains basically all the time.
Yes.
Second in medium, third in short. What happens when they play a team with a good defense that can shut down their running game, and they got to throw on 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 consistently? And can J.J. McCarthy make those plays? So I'm not calling for a Penn State win on this, but I do think the game is very close. I should have taken the early line. We discussed this. I think it was Penn State plus 6.5. Michigan was 6.5 point favorites on the weekend. It kept coming down. It was 5.5 most of the week, and now it is Michigan is 4.5 point favorite. So, but I'm still going to go ahead and take it. Maybe this is a homer pick. Who knows? But I like the matchup here. I'm going to go ahead and take Penn State plus the point. So Penn State plus 4.5 as they host Michigan. And I'm going back to my original prediction of 3 11-1 teams because going forward I think that Michigan still has the perfect team to beat up on Ohio State, who's a little more of a finesse team. So that's where I'm going. Penn State plus 4.5. You got any comments on that?
Well, you mentioned they keep it ahead of the sticks. They just keep it ahead of the score too. I mean, how often have they really been tested in terms of them being worried about losing a game here, early in the season? Well, not early anymore, but for the season so far. If Penn State at least stays with them, if not even goes up early, how are they going to handle that potential adversity with that team, with everything else that's already going on? I know we try not to bring that into play here, but it's something that's happening. I mean, whether the coach and the players want to say that's not on their minds, you would always say that as a coach and a player, but it's on their minds, for Pete's sake. I mean, of course it is. Whether that's motivation to do better or just thoughts of what's going to happen to it could be a good or a bad type of thing. Again, motivation or just unknowns of what's going to happen. So you don't know how they're going to let that play out. And I like getting points here. I agree with you. It'll likely be a close game, specifically because it is in Happy Valley, the big noon kickoff game. Really excited for it. I'm anxious I'll be able to actually watch this game Don't have anything else going on Saturday, so I'm really anxious for the game. And I like your pick. I think it makes sense to take the points with what is projected to be probably a close game. Get the points with the home underdog there. So
yeah, and I like your point about really not trailing. I think maybe Indiana had an early lead on them. Like we're talking the first 2 minutes of the game.
Sure,
and then after that, Michigan just foot on the accelerator.
Yep.
I like that point, and I will say I think Penn State is battle tested. That game with Ohio State, that was 60 minutes of intensity, just hard hitting football, and Michigan has not seen that yet. So I definitely think Penn State comes into this battle tested, where Michigan comes in untested. So
yeah, and real quick on that, I'll throw up a link to. We've done 2 episodes now. We kind of didn't get into the whole scandal thing here right away. We kind of let all that come, but we like to kind of maybe take different angles on some of this. Talk about some things that aren't in the new, aren't the headlines. So I'll throw a couple links up here if you're interested in those videos. If you're new to the channel and haven't seen them, click on those links if you want to know a little bit more of our takes on the scandal that's surrounding the good old Michigan football program. So anyway, let's go on with our picks.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about football. So Michigan State at Ohio State. Over the years, this has been a classic game. When Mark D'Antonio was at Michigan State, they upset Ohio State quite a few years. This is just not the year. I don't know that Ohio State is quite the machine that they were in the past, but Michigan State is definitely just a shell of what they were in the past.
Right. So
I don't love how big the line is. It's Ohio State. It's 31.5-point favorites, but I just they're a much better team. It's at Ohio State. Ohio State has so much to play for right now. They have that big win over Penn State already.
Right.
We've seen what's going on with Michigan and the turmoil. I think that Ohio State is just going to want to lay that hammer down, make a statement, and show that they are the team in the Big Ten. So I'm going to go ahead and take Ohio State to cover 31.5.
Yeah, I hear you on that line. I certainly think Ohio State wins big. 32-point big. Ooh, that's a tough line to hit. Again, Michigan State certainly a shell of what they had been. So it can happen, but I get your trepidation in some of that. So
all right, moving on to the next game, Indiana at Illinois. I really struggled with this game because both of these teams I kind of feel like have made progress and made improvements through the middle of this season.
Yep.
It is Illinois is the 6.5-point favorites at home, so almost a touchdown favorite. I really have this game honestly as a coin flip. I like what Illinois has started to do, but I also really like what Indiana has been doing. They showed me a lot against Penn State.
Yep.
They have that huge win at against Nebraska. So I really see this as a coin flip game. So I'm going to go ahead and take Indiana plus the points. I like 6.5. Would I love 7.5? Yes, but I like the 6.5. So I'm going to go ahead and take Indiana plus 6.5.
Yeah, if you think it's a close game, a coin flip game, getting 6.5 points is pretty nice. So totally agree.
Okay, so moving on to the next game, Maryland traveling to Nebraska. So at the beginning of the season, I predicted that Maryland would come out as the worst 5-0 team in the country, and that's what they did. And then they would have their normal mid-season to late season just catastrophe, and basically that's what's been playing out. I see that trend continuing. Maryland could do absolutely nothing on the ground against Penn State. I think they had negative 60 rushing yards. Nebraska has a pretty solid run defense. I think they can do that again and make Maryland one-dimensional, which Talia, he's a good player.
Yeah.
But, if you can make them one-dimensional, make him have to win the game, I think you can force him to make some mistakes, which is what happened, what Penn State was able to do. Now, I don't think Nebraska is going to blow Maryland out like Penn State did. Yeah. They just don't have. But Nebraska's at home getting 2.5 points. I would probably give Nebraska, if I was setting the line, I would make Nebraska probably about 5.5 to 8.5 point favorites, in my opinion, somewhere in there. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a Big Mountain ice cold lock.
Okay.
Nebraska plus 2.5, hosting Maryland, Big Mountain ice cold lock.
That's awesome. I mean, you're projecting Maryland to continue their slide down the rankings. We just came out with our power rankings after 10 weeks, and they have just been slipping bad. So you're kind of riding them, continuing the downtrend. I mean, and both of these teams coming off a loss last week here. Kind of who who's going to bounce back in this game? I think that's going to be the and I mean Maryland wasn't projected to win the game, but they got beat pretty handily. So that's a team that started 5-0. So you kind of question where they're at mentally. Not I want to say giving up on the season, but at this point you're certainly a lot more questions than you had maybe 5 weeks ago. So. Yeah, I get that pick.
And that's what this Maryland team does under Mike Locksley every single year is they start out kind of hot and fall apart down the stretch. I mentioned this, I think, maybe in our recap video. I saw a stat that under Mike Locksley, they're like something like 2-22 in November and December games, which is just, this is what they do. This is who they are. They had a good season. Talia is a good player. They had a good season to start, but I just see that continuing. Ever since the Ohio State game, I've seen nothing to indicate that Maryland is ready to win a football game in the Big Ten. So,
well, there you go. Take some points. And,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, moving on, Mini at Purdue. I really struggled with this game. Minnesota at Purdue. I've been down on Purdue all year.
Yeah.
Mini, they're okay. They're just okay. They're a middle of the pack Big Ten West team. They're playing at Purdue. Purdue's not too much of a home field advantage, so I don't love this game, honestly, but I'm committed to making a pick, and every Big Ten, I committed to that, so I'm going to stick with that. So Mini's getting 1.5, so I'll go ahead and take that in Minnesota plus 1.5.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I get that. I don't have any comments on that game, except I get that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so the next one, I actually really struggled on this one, too. Northwestern at Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a 10.5 point favorite at home. Now, Wisconsin does traditionally have a bit of a home field advantage. They get a good crowd. They have a great atmosphere. I think Wisconsin is the better team. And Northwestern's just been they're just a dumpster fire this year. In general.
Okay.
In general, they are.
They got some more wins, I think, than you thought they would.
Yeah, they've done maybe slightly better. I mean, when you play in the Big Ten West, it's going to happen sometimes. Right. But I just think Wisconsin is the better team. I did struggle with this. I would love this at Wisconsin, like minus 8.5 or something, but the line is 10.5.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and take it. I wouldn't normally even just make a pick in my own betting on this game.
Yeah.
But I'm committed to this, so I think I feel better about Wisconsin covering than Northwestern staying within those points. So I'm going to go ahead and take Wisconsin to cover 10.5. I'm
going to do something we have never done in 10 weeks of doing this.
Okay.
I am going to disagree with you.
All right, okay.
I would take Northwestern getting 10.5 points. I just think they've been a better team than people realize, and Wisconsin's just not playing great football right now. But I hear you that it's at Wisconsin. But I'm going to do my first disagreement. Okay. Not that it matters. I'm not picking it.
Yeah.
But I would have taken the points with Northwestern.
I totally get it. So this will be good. We'll have this will be a little battle this week.
All right, let's try this.
Yeah, bragging rights. Okay. All right, so Rutgers at Iowa. Boy, this is a wing dinger. I'm ending on a high note.
I love it.
Rutgers at Iowa. I'm making
game of the week.
Game of the week in the Big Ten. Yes. So I think this is the first time I've done this. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm making 2 picks on this game this week.
All right.
So Rutgers at Iowa. Iowa, we talked about this, great defense, really good special teams. It's at home. They definitely get a home field advantage at Iowa. They get a great crowd, great atmosphere. Really good teams have gone in there and lost football games or had major scares. Rutgers, they've definitely, I think, overperformed where I thought they would be. I like what they've been doing the last few weeks through the middle part of this season. But I think Iowa is just a little bit too good on defense. It's at their place. The Iowa is a 1.5 favorite. I see this as a coin flip game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of offense. I think it's going to be a lot of trying to run the ball, play good defense by both teams. So I'm going to go ahead and take Iowa to cover 1.5 points.
Okay.
As my official pick for the game.
Okay.
However, the pick that I really like in this game, and even though it's crazy, is under 28.5. Okay. Iowa has set the record, I think, 2 or 3 times this year on the lowest point total of power program football games.
Yeah.
And it keeps dropping. So, but I'm going to stick with it. I know under 28.5 sounds absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
But, Rutgers just not a real good passing team. Their strength is running the ball. Iowa has a very solid defensive line. Their favorite kind of football is playing against what Rutgers wants to do, which is to run up the middle, run the ball, shorten the game, have a few possessions. And I was like, yeah, we'll do that all day. We love it.
Sure, right.
And we'll get somewhere in there. We'll get a defensive touchdown or we'll get a special teams touchdown. So I'm going to go ahead and take under the total under for this game, under 28.5. And I like that pick. That's my personal pick. I'm actually going to make that pick.
Okay.
In addition to Iowa minus 1.5.
You're thinking like 13-10. 10-7.
I could see like a 6-4 game here.
Oh, my gracious.
13-7.
Yeah.
10-6.
Yeah.
Something like that.
10-6. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I know you're not a parlay guy at all, but for those that are parlay, I would assume you can get a same game parlay on this.
Probably.
Maybe you look at a same game parlay in them. So
yeah, not a bad idea.
Just an idea.
Yeah.
You want to go over your picks?
Yeah.
Here?
Let's run through them real quick. So I'm taking Penn State plus the points. So Penn State plus 4.5. Ohio State to cover 31.5. Indiana plus 6.5. Nebraska plus 2.5 was my Big Mountain ice cold lock. That was Nebraska plus 2.5. Mini plus 1.5. Wisconsin to cover 10.5. And I am taking Iowa to minus 1.5. But what the play I really like on this game is the game total. Rutgers at Iowa, the total game score to be under 28.5.
All right. Sounds good. Let's get to the Mountain West.
All right.
So I got 6 Mountain West games. Got 2 other picks for you. And as I always do, I typically go chronologically. And we got a couple really good games here this week. Again, the first one, Friday night football, Wyoming going south to UNLV. Really big game here for the Rebels again, coming off that loss to Fresno, but looked very, very good in that game. And then the huge win versus New Mexico last week. So, if there's any question of how are they going to handle that loss 2 weeks ago, question no more. They're fine. And, here the line here I think is very close on this. I think it will be a close game. Kind of my thoughts here really are Wyoming has been fantastic at home this year, undefeated at home. They have not been good on the road. They do not travel well this season at all. And so to me, I'm not going to call it a toss-up. I do like UNLV as the slate favorite, but I give just about every intangible in this game to the Rebels, not to Wyoming. The Rebels are minus 5.5 favorites. And I'm going to take the home team here at minus 5.5. There's been nothing this season that makes me think Wyoming can go down into UNLV with the team that they've been putting on the field this year and cover this spread by 6 points. I think this is a touchdown-ish game for UNLV to win. So I'm taking UNLV minus 5.5.
Okay. If I can make a quick comment.
Yeah.
I totally get where you're going on that. And like you said, Wyoming has been a completely different team on the road as compared to home. One thing I will say, Wyoming's defense against a freshman quarterback, that's one area I think, they could cause him to make some mistakes and whatever. So I'm not disagreeing with you on this pick. I'm just kind of throwing that out there as something to watch is Wyoming's defense against that. The freshman quarterback it's Maeva, is his name?
Maeva, yeah.
Who we both love. He's been great this year, real dynamic player. But I think that's the matchup to watch for this game.
Yep. No, good point. Next one is Nevada at Utah State. Little bit higher of a line here than I would necessarily like at 15.5. This is at Utah State. I went to Nevada last week, picked Nevada with a lock, and maybe I had a little bit of wishful thinking that I was making them a bit of a better team than they really are. Coming off of 2 wins there, so I'm actually going to take Utah State here at minus 5.5. Just a really good offense, and their defense is decent. Actually, probably a little bit better than I gave them credit for early on in Utah State, and I just don't know if Nevada can put up the points to stay with this 15.5 spread. Again, I don't love the line, but I'm going to take the favorite here at Utah State with minus 15.5.
Okay.
Next one, San Diego State at Colorado State. If you told me this line was 4.5 to start the season, I'd have said, lock that baby, bet the house on it. But at this point in the season, with San Diego State struggling in all facets of the game. I mean, I mentioned in our last episode, I feel a little bit bad for the defense in San Diego State because they are a solid defense overall. The offense just sputters typically. Now, Maiden did have a good game overall last week. I don't see that really continuing. This is in CSU. And at 4.5, I just don't see myself not taking the favorite here. I don't have trust in San Diego State's offense at all. So under a touchdown here, I'm taking the Rams at -4.5. Next one, New Mexico at Boise State. You'll see I'm wearing, I think for the first time, a good old Broncos shirt.
All right.
Another line that is up there. And yes, Boise can pass this line a little bit like what you were talking about with, was 31.5 or something for Ohio State.
Yep.
I'm kind of in that same boat with this. I mean, yes, Boise should easily win this game. Do they win it by 24? I'm not 100% sure. The line is definitely a little higher, but if I have to bet on this, am I going to bet on the Lobos to keep that spread close, or am I going to bet on the Broncos who have found their game here as of late?
Yes.
And so I'm going to go to the Broncos here at -24.5. I've been impressed with what they've done on both sides of the ball the past few weeks. So if anybody can cover this spread, to me, it's going to be the Broncos in this game. So I'm taking them at -24.5.
You know, Vegas really knows how to make lines and just put you at pressure points. 20 because -24.5. That's basically, well, the way the scoring is likely to work out. That's basically kind of like 4 touchdowns.
Absolutely, yes.
Like 27 points
Right.
that they need to win by. So they basically need to win by 4 touchdowns. And you know, you say 24.5. It doesn't sound too bad, but when you work it out on how the scoring has to work, so. Vegas knows how to make those lines that just put pressure on us, but I like your pick.
Yeah, I just can't get myself to take the points with the Lobos here. I mean, there's too much risk in that. The least amount of risk is for Boise to cover that. So that's where I ended up. The next one is, I don't know, the Wyoming UNLV game maybe is the game of the week. But this next game, the Fresno State at San Jose State, is also kind of right there, mainly for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, big game for them.
They have to travel down to San Jose State here. The line is only 1.5, so people really kind of on San Jose State to keep this
surprised.
close. I'm a little surprised too. I would have had this Fresno more around 4 or 5.5 type of a spread. So I'm not going to make this a lock, but there's nothing that leads me to believe Fresno's not going to come away with a victory at San Jose State. And at 1.5, I got to take the Bulldogs here. Again, a team that just has shown me no reason to not trust that they can get the job done. This is almost a coin flip again at 1.5. And, I like them here. So I'm taking the Bulldogs at -1.5. The last one, and I have to have a lock. I have to have a lock with the Mountain West. I was close. I will say I was close on the Bulldogs. I really pondered if I wanted to lock the Bulldogs. I'm not going to lock them, but very close to a lock on that. I am going to go back to my Falcons and lock them. So they're traveling to Hawaii. The spread is 18.5. This game should not be close at all. To your point, I'm throwing away the Army game. You mentioned that in the reaction video. Yep. Throw it out.
Yep.
I'm throwing it out. And I'm going back to where they were 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. They're a stud team. I saw somebody comment on one of they're overrated. This team is not overrated. They had one unfortunate game. They're anything but overrated. They're very strong, and Hawaii is not. We're talking about one of the top 2 teams in the Mountain West versus one of the bottom 2 teams, frankly, in the Mountain West. And they have to win by 18.5. I think this is a 20 to 30 point victory for the Falcons here. Again, I'm not putting any stock into last week. I'm going back to who the Falcons were. And so I am ice cold locking Air Force -5.5 at Hawaii. 2 other picks.
All right. What else you got for us?
So 2 teams I have not picked yet, but I have been following them. I've kind of been, when do I want to put my toe? Well, I've been, when do I want to jump in the water?
Okay.
I've been testing the water with kind of weeks. Now I'm going to jump in. And both of my other picks, I'm going to make locks.
Okay.
So the first one here is Memphis at Charlotte. I'm a little surprised by this line at 9.5. Memphis will put up points. Mm-hmm. I don't think Charlotte's offense can keep up with Memphis's offense. I mean, to me, this is a 2 touchdown plus game. I'm just surprised by this 9.5 spread. So I'm locking the Memphis Tigers at Charlotte at -9.5.
Okay.
To me, a lot of value there.
Yeah.
The next one, 3 weeks in a row. the Rice Owls. I can't get off this team. So last year I was big on to Georgia State. I like picking Georgia State. For whatever reason, I'm on the Owls here. They've hit for me 2 weeks in a row, so I'm going for the three-peat here, 3 weeks in a row. I actually like both, to get back to what you said with Iowa's game. Yep. I like the line and the over-under here. I'm not going to make a pick on the line, but the Owls are getting 14.5.
Okay.
I thought long and hard, do I pick both? Do I only pick one? I haven't had good luck when I pick both in games, so I am not making a pick of the 14.5, but I do like the Owls to cover that spread. What I am going to pick is the over 58.5. I think both of these teams are in the 30s with their points. I think this gets up to 70, 75 points overall. You know, I took them, if you saw our episode last week, I took them on the over last week. They easily covered that over with SMU. I think USTA is going to score their points just like SMU was. I'm pretty sure this 58.5 is the exact same number as it was last week. So I'm going to lock the over 58.5 for Rice at USTA. So that's it. The only other thing I want to point out, and before I go over my picks here one last time, is we're both wearing IUP hats, Steve. So yeah. I am an IUP, if nobody knows what that is, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. It's one of the state schools here in PA. My alma mater, I went there, I got my degree there, and I think Steve has a daughter that's going there right now.
Yeah, shout out to Lauren at IUP. Hope you're having a great semester.
There you go. Freshman.
Yes.
Freshman, figuring things out. I think from what I gather, she's having a great time. Yep. Love to know somebody that's attending my alma mater, but they have their last game this weekend. They're at Bloomsburg. Having a little bit of a down year for IUP. They're typically in the Division II playoffs almost every year. They're 500 at 5-5 right now. If there was a line on this, Steve, I'd be picking what I would call the IUP Indians. They're now the Crimson Hawks because of that whole debacle.
Yep.
But anyway, I would pick my IUP Indians to beat Bloomsburg here. But we don't have a spread on that. We don't have a game to pick on that.
I need to get on the horn to FanDuel. Why are they not offering lines on
Let's
IUP?
get D2 out up in here. Oh, gosh. Anyway, let's go back over my Mountain West and other picks. I've got UNLV minus 5.5 over Wyoming. I've got Utah State at minus 15.5 over Nevada. I've got Colorado State at minus 4.5 over San Diego State. I've got Boise State at minus 24.5 over New Mexico, a line that a little high for me, but I'm going to go with the fave. I got Fresno State minus 1.5 at San Jose State. Very close to a lock, but not quite there for me. And then I'm going back to my Falcons with a big mountain ice cold lock minus 18.5 at Hawaii. My two other picks then, I'm taking Memphis at minus 9.5 at Charlotte. And my third ice cold lock going back to the Rice Owls versus USTA to be over 58.5, going for 3 straight wins with the Rice Owls. So let's do it, Owls. Hoot hoot. And with that, we'll put an end to our pick 11 or week 11 picks. We will have a Pac-12 update coming out here tomorrow as well. We have some new information. It's been a little bit since we've been on the Pac-12. We've been doing some of the Michigan goodies, so we're going to get back on the Pac-12. So if you're interested in that, check us out. And with that, we're going to see you next time on the Big Mountain.